up. I know some of you have already started your meetings with career services, and so I'm sure they'll continue to support you in learning about resume writing and interviewing. Um, Yesterday, we talked about the interview process itself in terms of from the first time you get contacted, what you should expect in terms of the types of interviews you'll be doing, um, where to go, who to look out for in terms of who all's going to be there, trying to figure out if it's a panel interview or not, those types of things. Today, what we're going to focus on is the interview itself. Like this is one of the classes that I know people want to know most about in this course is, please, Miss Taylor, teach me about this interview and what do they want to know and why are they asking these questions. So I'm going to dispel all those myths for you, and so hopefully by the time that we're done, you'll at least feel more comfortable about the interview process. I think for most of us, the unknown is what kills us the most, right? If you're human, most humans want to know what's going on around the corner. So if we can prepare for something, it reduces most of our stress, right? Not that you still won't have anxiety, but if you can prepare for something because you know what's going to happen, that's when people feel the most confident. So when you're preparing for an interview, understand this. All the questions that they ask you typically fall within three categories. Categories. Uh, Put me on mute. I hear myself. So the types of questions that they're going to ask are going to be general questions. There'll be what we call behavioral questions, or your behavior from the past, because if they're asking a behavioral question, it's going to have to do with what you've done in the past. And typically those questions will always start with something past tense. And then they're going to ask you what we call stress-related questions. They only call it stress-related questions because they're futuristic. They tend to have be centered around their actual work. So when they get into questions that deal with the job itself, they call it stress-related questions. But as I'll show you, they are really behavioral type questions, but they're just asking you hypotheticals for their job. So they'll always start out with general information questions. These questions are going to be, things that, just help them understand a little bit more about you. Like I said, they want to understand your resume. They may ask you to walk them through your resume. Normally, if you're new in the field, they won't ask that question because obviously you won't have a lot on your resume related to the job. But they will say something like, tell me about yourself, or maybe talk to me about some of the jobs you've had. Definitely, why are you interested in this position, or why do you want to work for this company? Now, they may or may not ask these questions before they tell you about the company or after they tell you about the company. If you remember yesterday, I said to you, make sure that you do your research on the company. One of the reasons why you want to do your research is because you want to take control of the interview as much as possible. The quickest way to level the playing field with the interviewer is to do your research. When they start to talk about the company, for example, one thing that you're going to do is to try to build a rapport. So if they start out first by saying, hey, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. They're going to talk about their company. They're going to talk about their CEO. They're going to talk about their mission. They're going to talk about what it is they're trying to do. You are going to nod your head. If you can interject, depending upon the interviewer, because some people are really fast and they're talking, some people don't allow interjection, use your discretion. Interject little things that you know. Like if they say, oh, we have this new project, it's going to be down in Tampa. You may say, oh, is that the one with the new hospital that I read about online? Yeah, yeah, that's the one with the new hospital. They love it. They love to know, it level set for them because they love to know, okay, who am I dealing with? So when you interject things that are related to that company, it lets them know that not only are you engaged, you did your homework. Now they feel like they can talk to you a little more because prior to you saying anything, they don't know if you know anything about the company or if you're just somebody that filled out an application and now you're at the interview. So if you're nod your head, you act interested, interject here or there, something else you want to do. Always bring like a piece of paper or a little notepad and a pen. You're going to have several things on this notepad and pen before you even show up. One thing that you're going to have is any notes that you want to remember about the company. If you have any questions about the company or the position, you'll have your notes there. You don't ask questions all at once. You ask questions as the topic arises. In an interview, it's almost like playing cards. You never want anyone to see your hand. They don't want you to see their hand. You don't want them to see your hand. It's almost like you're playing a game. If you have concerns about anything, maybe you've seen something on their website, or you've learned more about this position. Maybe you've learned that, oh, they've had this contract with the airport for a while, and now they're getting this new project that they're working on. But you see something on their website or something in the job posting that says something about travel. Now, you want the job, but maybe you're concerned about the travel. You're never going to let on that you're concerned about anything. You're going to find times within the interview to interject or to ask questions, but you're never going to ask it in a way that lets on to them that anything is an issue. Remember, you're in a competition of sorts, right? Somebody else is going to come in after you in the interview as well. You don't ever want the interviewer to think, oh, she's going to have an issue with travel because she brought it up. I don't know if we're going to want her. She seems concerned about X, Y, or Z. That's not for them to decide. You're gathering information about the opportunity the same way they're gathering information about you. They're not going to play their hand and let you know whether they want you or not either. The objective for you is to take all your notes, take all the answers that they've said, and to go back to your house, maybe with your spouse or your family, or even just you, and then say, okay, based upon how that interview went, do I want to move forward? So what you'll do is they're talking about their company and they're saying, yeah, one of the reasons why we started this position is because, we have this new project. And you're like, yeah, I read about that. That's the one, with the airport. Yeah, yeah, it's the one with the airport. And, we have several of them, that we have. And you say, yeah, I read something about you guys, there's travel involved. Is it because you'll be moving from place to place? We're like, oh yeah, but they'll say, oh yeah, but that travel is really just to start your training. Once you get your training done, you'll be in that one spot. But you're like, oh, okay, act like it's a conversation. Don't ever let on that you have an issue or not. You got it answered. Maybe you did have an issue with travel, but the person said it's just for training. You got it answered. Keep the conversation flowing. You see what you're doing? Don't ever play your hand. All right. So that's one of the have your notepad. You can have questions down there. Don't have your notepad so they can read it. Have it to, I mean, you don't have to hide it with your arm, but just I say write in cryptic. I may say something like new project. Maybe I'll put travel down there, but I won't let the person know why. Don't let them see all your notes, whatever. So anyway, they're telling you a little bit about a company. If you have a question or two about the company, something you read, that's where you ask it. You don't wait to the end of the interview when they say, okay, do you have any questions? And then you start spewing all your questions. That looks crazy. It looks like you weren't paying attention in the interview, and it looks like anything you say is an issue. All right. Now, they've told you about the company. They say, tell me about yourself. Or they may say, why do you want to work here? Here's what you do. Normally, what I do to kill two birds with one stone. Why do you want to work here? Tell me about yourself. All of this is the same. They basically want to know, why are you here? So what I tend to do if I'm starting a new position is I weave a story together that talks about my passion and my experience. So I'm a new HVAC person. I've never done it before. I'm a new electrician, new welder, whatever. Something made me want to do this. So I'm going to add that to my story as I answer this question. I say story, but you still want to keep this question answered down. 3 minutes tops, guys. Don't wander off. I would say something like, let's say I'm in the VA program and I like animals. I would say, yeah, but I've never done VA before. Maybe I've only worked in accounting. So I would say, I've always loved animals. I'm always going to start out with a passion, right? Some type of soft skill passion. I've always loved animals. Maybe I went to my grandparents' farm. Every summer I used to go to my grandparents' farm, and I found myself really having a passion towards the large farm animals. I knew one day I may work with animals. When I got my first job, was in accounting, because, my there I had a background in accounting from working with my uncle. And I did that, and I loved accounting, and I found myself always trying to be helpful. If you have any soft skills related to that company, mention the soft skills. Maybe it's team dynamics. We always worked on these different team projects, and I always took the lead on that. But I still was really, something inside of me was urging me to go back to school for veterinary assisting. You don't want to spend too much time on the different jobs you've had. So you want to talk a little quickly, right? I did accounting, any type of soft skill they like, team dynamics, worked on a team. Get right to the point. I decided to go back to school for VA. When I was looking for my first position, I made sure I wanted to work for a company that dealt with large farm animals. I noticed that your company does a lot of work with a lot of the farms in the area, and you specifically, focus on, horses and cows and whatever else. So I knew that if I came to work for your company, that I would, be able to learn more about, specifically, any type of I'm just, whatever you learn about them. Maybe they deal with, large animals that have rare diseases. So, I knew I would learn more about, working with these large animals that have rare diseases. And that's why I wanted to work for your company. Right? So what am I doing? I talk about my passion. I touch on my work, whatever's relevant to them. Now, if I have any work with farm animals, like I mentioned, working with my grandparents, or maybe if I've done some volunteer work, weave that in. Always start with your passion, why you like it. Maybe your uncle had an electrical company, start with that. Maybe your cousin always did HVAC and you were always curious about what is he doing over there. Start with that. Start with, I got an interest in it. I got a passion for it, and always end with, I've done my research and you're the right fit. You have to do that for every company that you work for. What will that do? It'll keep them from having to do a follow-up question from you. Tell me about yourself. Now tell me about this position. Tell them about yourself and why you want for that position in one fell swoop. They love it. They love it because in their mind, that's two questions off their to-do list that they don't have to ask. And now they get a sense of why you're there. What does it also do? It also makes them feel like, oh, okay, this person is prepared. They're not just here because they want a job, which you shouldn't be anyway. This is a career, right? It's not just a job. So you should be going to companies that make sense for your career. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? If you do it that way, let me tell you, I've been doing it that way for years, guys. I'm telling you what I know. They never have any follow-up questions. They're always like, oh, good, 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 good. Listen, they love it more than you do because it's one less thing they have to do. And in a way, you're setting the tone for the interview. It's almost like you're kind of in control yourself, right? You're leveling the playing field. You're prepared, you're answering their questions, you're actually helping them move the interview along. The interview will then transition into them asking you specific questions about your past. It's behavioral because they're trying to get a sense of what you've done in your previous work, specifically your decision-making style. You know, what would you do in this situation? How did you handle that situation, right? You'll always know that the interview has transitioned into the behavioral type questions because the questions will be past tense. It would start out with, tell me about a time when, tell me about a situation where, right? What are they looking for? PAR, problem, action, result. They just want to know, how do you handle problems? They may give you a hypothetical situation in terms of, tell me about a time when you had to. What they want to know, what did you do to fix that issue and what the results were? So, what do those hypothetical or those typical behavioral questions look like? They're always set the scenario up in three different ways: a customer, a coworker, or a boss, right? Those are the people you tend to deal with at work. If it's a customer, y'all already know. Tell me what you think what type of scenario with a customer. Can anybody guess how they're gonna set that scenario up? Basically, they're gonna want to know what? In any situation, what do we always say about the customer? Somebody tell me. The customer's always right, right? So what does that mean? That means they're going to say, tell me about a time when a customer had an issue. How did you deal with it? Let me put you up on game if you don't already know. Whenever anybody brings an issue to you, I don't care if it's your girlfriend or customer, always focus on the problem and not the person. If you ever want to, conflict resolution 101. People will bring you problems in all kinds of ways. Some people are quiet. Some people are loud. Some people are emotional. Some people are stoic. That is their personality. That is their God-given personality. Do not take it out on them. People come in y'all already know people come in all different ways. Your job as a emotionally intellectual person is to focus on the words coming out of their mouth. What is the issue? You are a problem solver. If a customer comes to you with any sort of issue, you're listening to do what? To solve the issue. So if they say, tell me about a time when you had a difficult customer, they were complaining about something, they weren't happy, what did you do? On your notepad, if you've ever done any type of work and you've probably dealt with a customer, you are going to have a little cheat sheet. They're not going to know what this stuff means, but it's for you to remember. The biggest issue most of us have in interviewing is we forget what to say. We look like a deer in caught in headlights. We get nervous and then we don't know how to answer the question. For those of us, especially when you're new doing this, by the time that you get 10, 20 years into your career, you'll be able to say this stuff off the top of your head. You won't even need it, right? Because you'll be familiar with the terminology of your industry, what people are looking for. But sometimes when you're newer, you have to, even sometimes when you're older, and even if you're more seasoned, you have to jot things down. So you're going to have, like for me, I would put like maybe a little C or CU for customer on my piece of paper. Um, and they'll say, tell me about a time you had a customer situation. I'm going to think about, was there ever a time in my life where I had a customer? Oh yeah, I remember that Sarah girl. And she was all upset in accounting because her taxes didn't get done and she thought she missed the deadline, blah, blah, blah. What did I do to help Sarah? and then what the results were. So I'm going to say, yes, one time, I had a customer, I don't have to tell them their name, but I got Sarah on my paper to remember the Sarah story. And she was really upset because she thought she missed the tax deadlines. And I listened to her, and she was telling me why she needed it, blah, blah, blah. And what I decided to do was, whatever you decided to do, maybe you called the IRS for her, maybe you helped walked her through it, maybe you showed her how there's some extensions that she could apply for. And what we did was, when I put her on the phone, they talked to her, and we got that solved, and she was happy. They just want to know, did you solve it? And she was happy. So whatever your story is, you solved it and she was happy. Don't tell a story where the person was not happy and you didn't solve it. That's all they want to know. I don't care if you worked at Lowe's and a customer was needing something and you helped them and they were happy. That's all I want to know. Do you know how to solve problems? Because think about it, businesses is all about keeping things moving along. If you're not making money, it doesn't make sense. So they just want to know, are you a problem solver? I don't want to hear, oh, that she was crying and did it. Are you a problem solver? I don't care how the person brings you the problem. Can you listen for the issue, solve it, and move on? If it's a coworker, maybe you worked with Derek, and with Derek, they want to know that you know how to help your coworkers and you don't rat them out. I'll be honest with you, that they want to know if you know how to be a team player. Tell me about a time when you had a coworker and they weren't performing, or it's going to have something to do with them not being able to do their job. They want to know, did you help out or did you go tell them? They want to know, do you know how to help your people? All right, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to think about a time where maybe you had to help Derek. It doesn't even have to be work related. It could be Derek broke his leg playing basketball and you decided to, pick him up for a week. It could be, Derek was having a difficult time, doing the project. And instead of you ratting him out, you went to Derek and you asked him, hey, man, is there anything I could do to help you out? Turns out Derek was having a hard time because maybe Derek had some type of, issue understanding, and he kept doing step 3 on step 2. And so you walked Derek through it and Derek understood it, and now the team is winning. Do you know how to be a team player? Think of any story where you know how to be a team player and all they want to hear is you helped Derek and the team kept moving. Find you a Derek story. If it is a boss, 9 times out of 10, they don't like to ask these questions because they don't like to put themselves in the scenario. But in the rare instance that they do ask, they want to know, do you know how to, what we call, manage up? That means that if you have an issue with your boss, do you know how to go back to your boss, ask for clarifying information, ask clarifying questions to get information, and then if you really want to put some icing on the cake, offer up solutions. They want to know that you know how to manage up your boss. So tell me about a time when your boss gave you conflicting, things to do. How do you deal with that when your boss does that? Because y'all know bosses do it all the time. You know, poor little souls, they got so much going on. They may give you a deadline, then they'll move that deadline, then they'll tell you to do something else. It happens all the time. What do they want to hear you say? They want to hear you say a time where you had to go back to your boss, because we all have at some point, maybe, or most of us have, and say, hey, Mr. Allen, I know that you asked me to get this done by Friday, but remember we had that other project that is also due on the same day, right? Here is what I was thinking. I was thinking we should do this, and that. What do you think about it? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I totally forgot about that. They want to know, are you a problem solver? Can you offer up solutions? Or are you the type of person that goes, Mr. Allen, you done gave me 2 of these. I don't know what to do. Who wants to hear that? Nobody does. If you're the boss, do you want to hear that? Which do you like the best? Do you like someone that comes to you and say, hey, I noticed that we have this discrepancy. Here's what I was thinking. What do you want to do? Always let them have the final, y'all know how I go. Let them have the final say. But the fact that you offered up a solution makes it seems like you're a problem solver. Now I'm put you up on game. That's in real life. Do that real life. You want to get promoted quick, be a problem solver. Be a problem solver. I'm telling you. I've always worked my way through the ranks by having that mentality. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's not something that I just grew up with. Being in the military helped me do that. I'll be honest with you. And the military is all about solving problems, not about, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Any military people, y'all know what time that is. But, all right. So if you have that mentality, it helps, right? So whatever they add, if it's your boss, you got a Mr. Allen story. What did you do to offer up solutions? If it's a coworker, teamwork. If it's a customer, make them happy. Make sense? We don't know which one they're going to ask, but 9 times out of 10, it may be something similar to the type of work that you're going to be doing. So if you're doing project-based work, and the customer is the client, let's say you're working on a project at a airport, then the customer may be the airport administration, right? So that could be your customer. Obviously, if you're in the VA program, the customer is going to be the pet owner, right? So think about, how they may frame that question. If it's the VA, is definitely going to be the pet owner, right? And the pet owner is probably going to be concerned about the pet care, the price, right? That's always the issue. Pet and the pet care and the price, right? So they may frame a customer question with, tell me about a time a customer wasn't happy with a price, or tell me about a time you had to tell a customer some bad news. Maybe you have to tell the pet owner some bad news. If it's, welding or HVAC or electrical, it could be, the customer wants you to do something that, may not be part of the project, or could have some safety issues or something like that. How do you deal with them, by, listening to their issues, offering up some solutions to help them and kind of work them through it. Because even if you have to give people bad, information that they don't want, it's all about the compassion. That's one thing that, I think that a lot of people need to learn in customer service people. Just because the answer is no, it doesn't mean that you have to be, not compassionate in your no. You can still listen to people and understand what their needs are. And the answer still could be no, right? But they feel better understanding that you understand. And then it helps people walk through on their own what next steps to take. Any questions on behavioral based questions? Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
All right. Now, okay, so y'all cooking with Crisco. Y'all know, okay, okay, I got it. I like it. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter. Stress related questions. Not sure why they really call it stress, because most of these hypothetical based questions, um, to me, the only stress is really they put it in the context of the work that you're doing. So that's why it's so important for you to know the company, know the type of work that they do, know the position itself. You can always Google. You can even do YouTube videos nowadays. Yeah, you guys are you have a competitive advantage that people in my era just did not have when we were started out new jobs. Like, y'all can Google everything. The day in the life of an HVAC person, the day in the life of electrical technician, things to expect on your first day on the job. Like, y'all can Google all of that stuff. So y'all have a real true competitive advantage in terms of preparing you for your career. So with the hypothetical questions, and you can even Google this stuff. You can Google typical interview questions for a new electrical technician, typical interview questions for a welder or a VA. Like, you can do that, right? Too. And you can actually see some of the questions that they'll ask. And here's a quiet little hint. Sometimes they Google the questions themselves, right? So wouldn't that be fun if you you stumbled upon the very question set that they're using? Um, when it comes to stress related questions, they are going to frame those questions around the work that they do. Now, Sometimes it will be, it's still, watch this, it's still going to be in those same three buckets: customer, coworker, or boss. Most times, if it's a situation where someone left the company in a not in a disgruntled way, they may frame something around, what that person didn't do. Let's say that person wasn't a good team player. So, why is that important? It gives you some insight into what's going on with that company. Remember, you're a business and you are offering up a service, and you need to make sure that when you offer up a service, you're offering up in a place that you're also going to get reciprocation, not just money, i.e., is this going to be the right place for me? Can I grow here? Is this place going to stifle my growth? There's nothing sadder than people leaving a profession because they got to the wrong place. Recently, one of my daughter's teachers decided she just didn't want to be a teacher anymore because of anybody else has that situation. Let me raise my hand too. I tried to teach middle school one time, y'all. Yeah, they ran me out of there. Those kids don't play, right? They ran me out of it. I love the kids. I love the kids, but it is stressful. And it's not because the kids are quote unquote bad. I mean, but if you think about the process of teaching, y'all need to hug your teachers. You're on your feet for 6, 7 hours straight, back to back, class after class. And you do that in college too, but it's a different, group of people, right? And it's nonstop, and you're dealing with everything: teaching, classroom management, emotions, stress, fights. I almost broke my wrist trying to stop it forever. It's a lot. But I was really sad that this teacher decided not to teach anymore because she was really good, but she couldn't handle the stress, and I think and I know why. It even got more personal in terms of the environment, the classroom she specifically was in. It ran her out of there. So, and I think maybe she was in a different classroom. Obviously, I couldn't say anything because it's my kid's school and I mind my business. But I think if she was in a different classroom, she would have had a different mindset. But unfortunately, she was a co-teacher, and the teacher that she worked with was, had a whole different, way of doing things, right? So we always know that a lot of times, if you don't go to the right company, if you're not with the right boss, it can really affect your mindset in terms of, whether you like the work. They say that most people leave their jobs because of their first line supervisor. Give me a thumbs up if you think that's true. Like, sometimes it's not the work, it's not the company, it's the supervisor. So, those first line supervisors can run people out of a career. That's very sad if you think about it, because people go to school, they do all this training, and then because you laid your hat at the wrong place, it ran you out of there. So I thought it was very sad. But anyway, this is why you want to pay attention in these interviews, and you want to listen to what these people are saying, because they're telling you things without telling you things. If you notice that this hypothetical questions that they're asking you or has a lot to do with coworkers, my friend, that may be a little bit of an alarm. I'm not telling you to, I'm just saying pay attention, right? Like, why do these people keep talking about, oh, tell me about it? What would you do if? So the hypothetical stress are always going to be centered around what would you do if? They're going to be future based, right? What would you do if you had a coworker and the coworker was blah, blah, blah? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the coworker's not performing, the coworker is difficult. Your answer is going to be the same as it was when you were helping Derek. Um, you are going to, well, the only difference with this is you got to do your research on the company. This is why you got to do your research. You won't know exactly what they do, but listen to what they're saying on the front end. Listen, do your research as much as you can. So when they ask you a hypothetical question and it happens to deal with a coworker, they've already said that you're going to be doing some project teamwork. They've already said that, you guys have to, you're going to be on a deadline. So if they offer up this hypothetical, what would you do if you had a coworker that, was affecting you guys meeting your deadlines, right? Well, what are you going to do? The only thing you can do, I'm going to go to this coworker. I'm going to see if I can offer up some help, because that's what they want to hear. Teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. So whatever they ask, If it's coworker based, teamwork. What would you do if it's a customer? Obviously, if you work at Duke Energy and you got to go out with customers, what do customers typically be upset about? Y'all already know their bill, having to turn off their electricity, maybe having to do some installation, and the customer has questions. The customer's not happy about price. The customer thought they were getting one package and they were getting something else. What would you do? What are you going to do? You're going to listen to understand, and you're going to try to help walk them to the conclusion. The conclusion may not be what they want to hear, but you're going to walk them to the conclusion. If anybody has kids, y'all know how you do that all the time, right? You already know the answer is no. I have to do it every day when I pick up my daughter because she wants to go shopping. I know it's a demon, it's a monster that I created. Don't judge me. But this kid thinks every time she gets picked up from school, she has to go shopping. So I have to, in my mind, it's like playing a game. I already know she's going to ask me. So what obstacles, what am I going to do? How am I going to help walk this kid to the answer is no. I do it every single day. Um, it's the same thing with customers. The answer could be no, but how do you help walk them through it? Listen to the problem, offer up some solutions, and get to the result. Because you want them to be happy at the end, whether the answer is yes or no, right? So whatever type of work that they do, if it's customer based, whatever situation that they present, think in terms of you got to think a little bit on your feet, but it's going to be, I need to fix the issue and get to the result. So even if you use that phrasing, well, my goal is to fix the issue, right? My goal is to fix the issue. And then, sometimes you can even ask the customer, okay, did that fix your issue? Is there anything else you need? Right? They love to hear that. Now, in the rare instance, they ask about a manager, it's going to be similar to what would you do, if your boss was giving you conflicting information, right? We already know what to do. Offer up solutions. So these hypothetical questions are going to be centered around their company. That is why you need to do your research. Maybe in doing your research, you've also noticed that even in the job description, it talked about working on several projects at once. Maybe that's a question for you. Maybe you share, a car with a family member. Maybe you have to pick your kid up after school. Maybe whatever, right? And that's a question for you. Remember, I said you ask questions as the conversation comes to it. Typically, you won't dig into the actual job itself until you get to these stress related questions. Now, that does not mean that the interview, the way I'm presenting it, it may make you think like, okay, you're not going to get to these stress related questions into 30 minutes into the interview. No, it just depends on how fast or slow the interview goes. These questions could come up in the first 10 minutes. So it doesn't really matter about how fast or slow it goes. It's just when you get to this section, you know how to answer it, right? So if you do your research on the company as much as you can, maybe you did have a question about these multiple projects, right? Now is the time to ask. You don't ask that on the front end and you don't ask it at the end. Ask it during the stress related questions section. This is where you'll learn the most about the position. They're talking about it, and you can say, and they'll say, yeah, we have a lot of multiple projects. You'll be like, am I also going to be on the multiple projects, or am I just going to be on one? Oh, no, for you right now, the new people coming in, we only put on one project. You got your question answered, move on. Don't ever give an indication as the issue or not. Does that make sense? Maybe you wanted to know about overtime. Maybe you love overtime, but you don't want to come here. Is there overtime? Because some people think, okay, listen, buddy, you only getting paid 40 hours. Don't be greedy. Some of them is like, you listen, we don't do under 60. So if they're talking about multiple projects, you could say, oh, do we normally do that within the 40 hours? Or is it more like, oh, no, man, I hope you love overtime because it's about 60 hours a week. Absolutely, I do. Why do you think I came here? Oh, okay. You just nod your head in agreement and keep it moving. Sounds good? All right. Remember, you don't know them, they don't know you, and you don't know what could send off alarm bells. Most times, guys, the ghost of Christmas past is your biggest enemy. i.e., that person that you're replacing is your biggest enemy because they're always judging you against whoever that last person was, right? So you don't know who the ghost of Christmas past is. So that's why you don't want to let on to anything that would come, potentially, have them judging you negatively based on their own personal bias. To that point, there are questions that they should never ask you, my friends. I do not care. Most of them know better. There are legal teams in HR that tell these people don't ever ask these questions because these questions are illegal questions. What do you mean by illegal? Yes, yes, they're illegal. That means you cannot discriminate. Well, you used to not be able to. I don't know about now, but it used to be a big thing, right? Age, disability, ethnicity, gender, marital status, religion, off limits. I do not care if somebody walks in there with a cane and bifocals and they're applying for a welding job. They cannot ask, oh my God, are you okay? Or can you see out of those glasses? Hey, you cannot discriminate. If that person would say, hey, I feel discriminated against because of my eyesight, I would not apply for this job if I couldn't do the work. So they cannot ask. I don't care if you walk in there looking 6 months pregnant. Maybe you're not pregnant. They don't know your situation. They could not say, oh my God, when do you do? Right? Because any of those things could lead down the wrong path. Remember, let's say this person just had a baby. You know how people are, they're really excited. They're talking about the baby. So now you feel compelled to talk about when you're due, but you don't know that the boss's boss is already mad that this person just came back and been gone for 12 weeks. And now they're talking about, oh yeah, and she's pregnant too. Or maybe it's your wife that's pregnant and you're talking about, oh yeah, we're about to have a baby. And now the boss's boss is looking sideways because this one was already out for 3 months. Now they're thinking, okay, this one's going to run off too. You see how that can go down that rabbit hole? Don't go down a rabbit hole. Do not talk about your personal issues. You don't know what's on the other side of that conversation. I don't care if they're showing you baby pictures. Oh, that is nice. That's a beautiful baby. Keep it moving. Don't mention anything about your situation. I know we feel compelled to want to build camaraderie. You're thinking, oh, this person's just like me. That person's just not just like you. You don't know anything about that company until you get there. Keep your business to yourself, right? They can't ask those questions. Do not offer up information about yourself. If they want to build rapport, talk about their family, smile, nod, be in agreement, keep your personal business to yourself. People do judge you. Trust me, I've been on the other side of it. They talk about it. Don't do it. Wait till you get in there. Then you want to, oh yeah, I got a baby too. Keep that to yourself. Yes? All right. Now, what can you ask? I know you're like, my goodness, Miss Taylor. What can I ask? Well, there are things that you want to ask. We've already talked about it. You should have intelligent questions to ask throughout the process. Whether it's about the company, it's about the position itself. You should be asking questions throughout. So by the time that you get to the end, the only questions you should have are things that was not discussed. One way, surefire way to have them looking at you sideways is to ask a question that was already discussed. That is why you ask the question throughout the interview. Yeah? What other questions can you ask? It's okay to ask, oh, if they didn't answer it, maybe you also had a question about, has the project already started? And they didn't answer that really. So you can ask, oh, so has the project started already? And they'd be like, oh, no, we're hiring everybody and we're gonna all start you guys at the same time. That's a smart question. Or if they say, Larry left, you can say, oh, Larry left. So has the position been vacant since he left? Because you need to know, what am I walking into, right? You can ask that question. Oh, yeah, Larry left, but we've had Tim. Tim's been filling in until we get a person on board. That's good to know. That means I'm not walking into a nightmare. You can also ask, where are they in the interview process? You need to know, am I the first person they've interviewed? No, I have to wait for 3 weeks to know. They'll say, yeah, we just started the interview process. We're going to be interviewing for the next couple of weeks. So now okay, let me get my job search going. You should keep your job search going anyway, but it manages your expectations. Not to expect to hear from these people for the next couple of weeks. Or conversely, they could say, yeah, we're wrapping up our interviewing this week. You're the second to last person that we're interviewing. So we'll make our decisions probably by the end of next week. Now I know, right? Now I know I have a week to wait. And what is that going to do? That helps you to say, okay, if I don't hear from these people within 2 weeks, I'm going to reach back out, right? That's how you do that. Does that make sense? Now, what questions should you not ask? Don't ask about money. Clutching my pearls. What do you mean, Miss Taylor? Isn't it about the money? Yes and no. Let me tell you how this works. If in the job posting, they've said this position pays between $25 and $40 an hour, why are they interviewing you? They're trying to see if you're worth 25 or $40 or something in between. Why are you at the interview? You're trying to see if you want to get paid 25, 40, or something in between. How are they going to know what to pay you? Based on how well you do in the interview. How are you going to know what to ask for? Based upon what you hear from them in the interview. You'll never know that at the front. They can't answer that at the end because they have to go and get all their little notes and compare apples to apples. They have to compare you to the other person. They have to do their little chit chat, look at their budget, and then they're going to collectively decide how much to pay you. And then the HR person is going to send you an offer letter for 33, 35, 25, 40, whatever it is. It's going to be on a pay range. Unless they've told you we start everybody at 25, take it or leave it. Does that make sense? While they're doing their little back house, whatever, you're going to go back to your side and you're going to say, okay, I've listened to these people talk. Man, I'm not doing this for less than 30 because they're talking about project here, project there. I got to travel, right? So that's what you're thinking in your mind. HR sends you an offer letter. We really loved you. We would love for you to move forward. We want to offer you $35 an hour. Bingo. Good, because I was willing to accept 30. Very, very, very good. But if they send it back to you and say, we want to offer you 26, then now let me give a disclaimer. I'm not telling y'all to go and deny any job that career services is helping you to get. I'm not telling you to do that, right? I don't want nobody to say Miss Taylor said, but I'm telling you, typically in a negotiating process, this is how it works. Do you negotiate salary? Absolutely, you negotiate salary. Now, do you always negotiate salary on the front end as your first job out? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on what your skill set is. Only you know your skill set. If you feel that you deserve $30 for X, Y, and Z, and you can articulate to them why you feel like you deserve 30, then normally that is the process. They say 26, you say, oh, I was really looking for 30 because you guys talked about team lead and you said that you probably want me to be a team lead or Larry's been out. And so I'm going to have to do, 2 projects, finish up Larry's, then start my own. I was thinking more 30. That's how a normal salary process goes. Now, does that always happen at the beginning of your career? No, but I want you to understand the process. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
He's like, okay, all right, all right, all right. Sounds good. Does anybody have any questions? Y'all just ready to get out of here. All right, all right. I know when to be quiet. All right. So as you can see, preparation is key. That's why we want you to do mock interviews because we want you to get this process down. Does it make sense now why we want you guys to do these mock interviews? Hopefully, yes. Yes, Miss Taylor. All right. Y'all understand the night before is that's why it's also good. Hey, you gotta look good and smell good as well as talk good, right? So arriving early, being on time, looking good, smell good. It's like a first date. All right. So we don't have time to do the mock interview, so we're just going to move here. All right. I was a video I was going to show you. You can find it in your classroom. If you go under videos, the mock interview is there. So here's your live conference question for today. I want you to name 3 things you are looking for in a company. Maybe you have to do some research on this. Maybe you already know. I'll give you a hint. Your career goals, your long-term career goals should be your true north. So if you have your long-term career goal in mind, that should help you think about, okay, what am I looking for in this first company that I'm going to go work for? Also, For your assignment today, I'm asking you one of the things that another tool that you'll be using, you'll learn in chapter 10, is this concept called informational interviewing. This is picking someone's brain. Has anyone ever heard of that before? Picking someone's brain? This is where you ask a series of questions. Hey, Tom, I see you've had your own business for a while. I'm thinking about owning my own business. You mind if I run some questions past you? We're going to have you do that in this class. It's another thing we want you to do in this class. I believe that is your assignment for today. I'm going to look it up really quickly to make sure. If it is your assignment, the only thing I want from you is the name of the person that you're going to ask these questions to. Make sure you, yeah, make sure that you read the assignment, guys. I don't want anything. I just want to know the name of the person. Read through the assignment. It tells you everything about the assignment, why we do it. It gives you different questions you can ask. You're not doing the interview today. You're just going to give me the name. That's all you have to do today is say, you know what? A lot of your instructors at your campus, they do it all the time for you. They know, that they have to answer this question to all of the kids. So they know. But maybe it could be, a family member or a friend, a neighbor, somebody at church, whoever. One person that you're going to ask to pick their brain. You're going to start with your long-term goals. Hey, Sarah, my long-term goal is to become a master electrician and own my own business. She doesn't have to be in electrical. I know that you've been running your own business for quite some time, and I want to ask you a few questions. Like that's what you would ask her. We just want the name of Sarah. So it's going to be Sarah Smith. She can own a bakery. By next Wednesday, I want you to have spoken to Sarah. And next Wednesday, you're actually going to talk about how that conversation went. But today, I just want you to give me a name. Sarah Smith, ABC Bakery. Any questions on that? Well, all right, sirs and ma'ams. Good luck to you. I know some people had to jump off for their interview with the resume, but I'll talk to you guys hasta mañana. Have a good night.
You tomorrow.
Have a good day.
Have a good
I have a
day.
night. I have a night class too, so have a good day. All right, y'all. Get my participation questions turned in. Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye.